Hi. I don't know if this is working yet, and someone was going to frantically wave at me if it's not.
You need this as well.
I need this as well?
Yes.
Oh, I need all the things. All right, cool. Hi. Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing? Good? Okay, that was actually a reasonably, all right, everybody's still pretty peppy. Cool. Curious what you're like at the end of the day. Great. Again, thanks to the Startup Product Summit for having me. As I was sitting there watching all the introductory stuff, and I realized this is the first one of these, which makes me the first speaker for the first one of these. There's a lot of pressure here because if I screw this up, I'm not just screwing up my talk, I'm actually apparently screwing up the entire conference. So we're just starting off on the wrong foot. So I'm going to endeavor not to do that. So what we'll do is we'll start with the best of all possible things, which is Star Wars. You just heard a lovely introduction by Nadia of me. I am a huge nerd, so you'll have to excuse me if you're not a nerd, or if you, God forbid, haven't seen Star Wars. This will seem a little bit strange to you. But I'm going to be talking about how to turn mediocre products into awesome products. And in Star Wars, the Death Star is a product. The Death Star was quite a product, actually. It was very quickly built by a very scrappy team. It definitely had some flaws. It had some fairly serious design flaws, I would say. I would not say that it was an awesome product, but it got to market very quickly, and it surprised the hell out of the competition. So as products go, that was reasonably successful. It wasn't perfect, though. The first iteration was not great. There was a problem with an exhaust port or something, and it was just too easy a target, I guess. So the second iteration of the Death Star was also quite a product, but the leadership team wasn't entirely on board. So not everybody at the top of the food chain was really committed to the vision for this second Death Star, and it ended up having some problems of its own. And this is a reasonably important thing that they went through these iterations, because nobody really wants to be invested in a product that sucks, or something that's going to be forgotten, or something that's just really, really terrible, really, really tremendously terrible. If you've never actually seen this, don't, for one thing. Don't see it. It is a real thing, and that's actually, it's attributed, but this is presumably what George Lucas said about it, which I think is all you need to know about it. That if the guy who gave us Jar Jar Binks would smash this, you know it's got to be bad. Nobody wants to be invested in a product that isn't any good. Nobody wants to push out a product that isn't any good. So we want to know how to take mediocre products, products that have flaws, products that need more work, and turn those into really awesome products. So let's take a slightly more tangible example. Before I actually get to that, though, I should note, I've done this talk maybe once before, but it was like 180 slides, and it took like an hour and a half. And they were like, yeah, you're going to be doing this in 20 minutes. So this is really seriously pared down. So if I'm somewhat surprised by what slide comes next, it's because I'm actually surprised by what slide comes next. I'm from ZURB. ZURB is a product design company down in the South Bay. We're in Campbell, so just outside of San Jose. We've actually been around for about 15 years. I've been with ZURB for 4.5 of those. We've worked with over 200 startups, and we've created about $1.5 billion in market cap for our clients over that time. I wish they had given us more of that, but you do what you can. You can find us at ZURB.com, or you can find us on Twitter just at @ZURB. And then myself, my name's Jonathan Smiley, like the face. It's a funny name. And you can find me on Twitter as @Smiley, which is a blessing and a curse for a Twitter handle. So like I said, we're talking about Star Wars, and I like Star Wars a lot. I'm really excited about there being more Star Wars stuff. That's really, really cool. This definitely went through iterations, though. Episode 4, we had this one. Episode 6, we had this one. Who knows what we'll have in Episode 7. Let's look at something that's a little more tangible, which is the first 6 generations of the iPod. Everybody here know what an iPod is? Don't even have to raise your hands. Everybody knows what an iPod is. And actually, this was actually even shocking to me as I was going through this prezo again. The iPod came out 12 years ago. Doesn't seem like it was that long ago, right? It's crazy. This is just the first 6 generations of the iPod. And it's easy when we think about the iPod now, because the iPod is, you could argue that it's, excuse me, that it certainly has competitors and there are good products out there. But the iPod is probably, thank you very much, the iPod is definitely an awesome product. Like, it crushed it. It just dominated the market for years and years and years, to the point where the only thing that could really dethrone it was something else from the same company. So the iPod was arguably an awesome product. And it's easy to think that the iPod was always an awesome product. It's easy to think that the iPod started as an awesome product. I'd say it started as a good product. It started as an okay product. But what Apple realized, and actually specifically what Steve Jobs realized, was that you don't just create awesome products out of nowhere. This was actually the first prototype of an iPod. It was a block of wood. Steve Jobs was heavily influenced by Jeff Hawkins from Palm, who, when they were developing these Palm devices, would literally carry around just a block of wood that was the right size. so that he could understand what it was like to carry around something of that heft and that size and whether you would actually want to get it out of your pocket or keep it in your back or your front pocket. So Steve Jobs actually carried around a block of wood that was the size of the first iPod. And that was the very first prototype of the iPod. And this contributes to what I would call the Steve Jobs myth. And I actually used to work for Apple long ago, so I have a bit of an Apple fanboy thing going on. So you could substitute any lone genius you wanted here. But the myth of sort of the lone genius, the myth of someone like Steve Jobs, is that they sit in their office and they're just kind of like, you know, daydreaming or whatever, and then eureka, they have this incredible idea for this product that's going to change the world, and ta-da! They go talk to engineering and they build it and it's done. And that's absolutely not true. It's not true of anything that Apple's ever really done. It's not true of almost any really, truly great product. There are some exceptions. But by and large, most great products don't happen that way. They happen because of two things that I'll get to in just a moment, but they happen because the people who are behind these things understand the process of actually creating an awesome product. Steve Jobs was actually one of these people. There's a funny story about Steve Jobs. There was a guy at ZURB who worked at the Apple store in Palo Alto. And everyone who worked at the store in Palo Alto knew this was something that happened. But what Steve Jobs would do after the stores opened is he would literally hide in the bushes outside the store to watch how people interacted with the product, how they interacted with the store, how they interacted with displays, how the staff interacted with them. He would, no kidding, he would hide in the bushes. So the people who worked at the store would kind of say, hey guys, Steve's hiding in the bushes today. And they could look outside and he's like hiding in the frickin' bushes, watching people like interact with the store. Because the store, to him, was another product of Apple's. The store was an experience that they wanted to hone. It was something that needed to go from being mediocre. I would say the stores were always very nice. I actually worked at an Apple store right after they opened. They were very different than they are now. They needed to become awesome products. They needed to become awesome experiences, and he understood that, and that's why he would, frankly, do creepy things like sit in the bushes and watch people. So awesome products don't just happen. They don't just pop up. You might have an incredible idea, and that's great. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be an awesome product. It requires two things to take a mediocre product and turn it into an awesome product. And that is ideation and iteration. Ideation and iteration. And it's not one or the other. You need both. You need ideation plus iteration. I'll give you one more example. Everybody here knows what a Post-it note is, right? Yeah, okay, everybody knows what an iPod is. I hope everyone knows what a Post-it note is. Post-it notes actually have a really bizarre history. In 1968, a guy named Dr. Spencer Silver at 3M developed this adhesive, this like tacky adhesive that would stick harder the more you pushed on it. So basically what you would expect to find on the back of a Post-it note. He developed this adhesive thing, and for the next 5 years, he peddled that in seminars and all kinds of stuff throughout 3M, like, guys, look at this super cool like tacky crap I made. And he spent 5 years pushing this thing and just got nowhere until 1974, when Art Fry, who was a colleague of his, looked at that sticky stuff and thought, you know, if I put that on a really small piece of paper, I could use it to mark my place in my hymn books for church. So he put that tacky stuff on these little strips of paper, and he would use them to mark his place in books. And he actually tried to sell that a year later, and they were called Press and Peel, I think. He tried selling it, and it flopped. It just, meh. Nobody needed these little sticky things to just mark their place and stuff. So then 3M looked at what he'd done, and they actually said, well, what if we made the paper bigger so you could write on it? And they created that as basically a Post-it note, and they pushed it out to a test audience in Boise, Idaho, and like 95% of people said, yeah, I'd buy that. And then 4 years later, it actually made it to market, 1980. So this stuff started in 1968. It went through lots of different people. It went through all this different iteration. It went through lots of different incarnations before it actually arrived at something which, Post-it notes are not complicated. Let's not kid ourselves. This is not rocket science. But it was an awesome product, and people really, really liked them. And I guarantee that probably everyone, I know I have like piles of sticky notes sitting on my desk. I never seem to really do anything with them, but I have them. So they're pretty ubiquitous. But that was another example of just the ideation and the iteration that has to happen with an idea before it actually turns into a product that people care about or want to give you money for, which I would guess, since this is a startup product summit, everybody would like to be given some money for what it is they're doing. Yeah, I see some smiles there. Anybody who's not smiling, I wonder what you're doing exactly. Let's all get paid. So I'm going to run you through really quickly here. I just noticed that there is like a big timer staring at me. Wow, okay. I'm really concerned that if I go over time, I was talking to Vince about this, he comes up after me, I was really concerned that it'll just like play me off like the Oscars. It'll be like a big hook and I'll just get pulled into that room over there. Yeah. So I've got 10 minutes. All right, I'm going to just go. I'm going to run you through an example of ideation and iteration that we did at ZURB for a product of ours called Verify. So we have a product called Verify, and I know that no one apparently is on the internet, so you're not going to be able to look at this right now, and that's fine. You have to look at me. But Verify is at verifyapp.com. This is a product that we developed at ZURB almost 3 years ago now, actually. But I'm going to run you through the process of how we actually developed it in a very quick fashion, so you can see how we do ideation and iteration at ZURB. So Verify, just very quickly as a product, is basically a tool for concept testing. It falls kind of between focus groups, which are very, very quantitative, tons and tons of people, very simple questions, and straight up usability testing, which is like one-on-one, very qualitative, very focused. Verify lets you do things like memory tests or click tests or like yes-no success tests on sketches or screenshots, basically letting us get some data on things before we go build them. We've actually found that to be very, very useful. Anyways, that's what Verify is. But I'm not actually here to do the hard sell thing on go give us money for Verify, although if you'd like to, by all means. What I'm going to talk about is how we actually built it. So like I said, we need ideation and iteration to go from a mediocre product to an awesome product. And this actually includes going from no product to an awesome product. Because if you're going from no product to an awesome product, I can just about guarantee that no matter how talented you are, your first cut at it is going to be okay. It's not going to be the best thing you'll ever push out. So we start with ideation. And at ZURB, ideation means sketching. We do ideation through sketches. We love sketching. We love sketching. And we don't get real fancy about it. We're talking like piles of paper and Sharpies. The only fancy thing we afford ourselves is that if a Sharpie gets dull, we tend to throw it away because we're snobs. But the nice thing about sketches is there's lots of nice things about sketches. It's easy to create multiples. You don't get your ego bruised with sketches. You can do 100 of them. And if 50 of them suck, that's fine. 50 of them were OK, and you can feel good about yourself. They're very fast. So if you need to do those 100, you don't have to get hung up on. We've actually tried sketching on iPads and things like that, and you can do it, but it slows you down a lot. Sketching just like Sharpie and paper is very, very fast. So you can get in a flow. You can do lots of stuff. It's cheap, so it's easy to repeat. There's not a huge investment here. They're disposable. If a sketch doesn't work, you just throw it away. Recycle it, excuse me. Don't throw it away. And there's this opportunity for these wow moments. Something we found when you're getting into a flow with sketching is that if you're doing a lot of sketching, you're going to end up sketching things that you didn't necessarily originally think of, and they're going to be better than what you had before. So you'll have these moments of like, oh, wait, it would be so cool if I, and then you sketch it out, and you're good. And this is how we started with Verify. We did tons and tons of sketches. I would guess before we actually went to code or anything, we probably went through 300 or 400 sketches of different parts of the application, different screens, different flows, all kinds of stuff. This is a pile of probably 20 out of the seriously hundreds and hundreds of sketches that we did. And we sketched out everything. We sketched out what does the pricing page look like, which actually not only helps us show what we're going to show the pricing page as, but also what the pricing plans even were. And there were about 20 different cuts at this. How are we going to actually show tests? How are we going to show your progress through a test? How are we going to collect information from people afterwards? You can tell from these sketches, these are not, we don't go to town on these things. These are pretty fast. We keep them really scrappy. We don't get heavily invested in shading and doing all kinds of fancy stuff, which you totally can do. What is the homepage going to look like? What is a wizard to actually create a test going to look like? Tons and tons of these sketches. I don't need to belabor this. And then what we would do is we'd take all those sketches and we'd put them up on a board and we would just critique the crap out of them. We'd get either the whole team or parts of the team to just come through and just tear it apart. Like, what's working, what's not, what would you do instead, what do we want to kill, what do we want to change, what do we want to do here, what do we want to do there. And we did this 3 or 4 times just with sketches before we committed to anything beyond Sharpies and paper. So at that point, we had something like this. We had done all these sketches. We had a vague idea of what our Death Star, if I'm going to carry this metaphor through, was going to be. By the way, these Lego Death Stars are awesome, super cool. We have a Lego Millennium Falcon at work, and it is also awesome. I'm such a nerd, oh my god. But at this point, we had something like this. And now we needed to go one step further. So we had done our ideation. We ideate through sketches, and we had done our ideation. We had gone round and round and round on what we were going to do for this app and how we were going to structure things and how it was going to work. Now it was time for us to iterate. And when it comes to iterating, the first thing you have to do when you're iterating is produce the first iteration. You have to start somewhere. So we set a very, very aggressive goal for ourselves with iteration, which was to do the entire front-end code, statically, but do the entire front-end code for the app in 1 week. And we did. We did the entire front-end code in a week. It might have gone 1 day extra. I don't remember exactly, but it was very close. So we did the whole front-end code in a week. And we ended up with something, this is just a small section of the page, but something that looked like this. Basically a representation of every single page and every single state of the application statically for everything, all the way through the app. How you select a test, how you set up and configure a test for all the different types of tests, all the home pages, all the different states of the home page, everything. It was all done in just static code. And it was not really pretty. So if this was the sketch for our home page, it ended up looking like this, which doesn't look bad, other than the fact that the avatar up there is apparently the word avatar, and it doesn't fit in the space. But we did this pretty quick and dirty. We had a framework that we were using that actually helped us accelerate some things there. But we did this pretty fast, and we went through and just did every single screen. So this page, where you actually select the type of test you want to create, coded up and looked something like this. Again, not really pretty, and I literally sketched those icons and scanned them and dropped them in, because who cares? We just needed to know how it was going to work, and vaguely what it would look like. But that was not good enough. We needed to do it again. We had this whole pass at the entire application, and we could look at that, and we could make some decisions. We could see what was working and what wasn't, but it wasn't good enough at all. It didn't look good enough. It didn't work well enough. It needed to be improved. We needed another iteration. And this is still in just static code. We hadn't built the app at all. We hadn't written any back-end anything. So we went through and did it again. This page where you select a test, which ended up looking like this, eventually looked like this. We did another round, and it looked like this. And then we did another round, and it actually looked like this, because we realized we needed a list instead of a grid, because we wanted to be able to say more. We wanted to be able to show more about each type of test. And that enabled us to actually do the rest of the screens in the app, to do that same sort of iteration so that we could end up on report pages that actually were pretty polished. Of course, you may be sitting back there going, that doesn't look that great. It was a few years ago. We did all right. Home pages that actually came together and had what we wanted to show. But this ideation and iteration was how we took nothing, basically, for Verify and turned it into, and this is the part where I don't know if it's an awesome product, Verify. I think it's a good product, and I'm pretty proud of it. I think we still have more iterations to go before it's an awesome product, and we keep doing that. But taking a mediocre product and turning it into an awesome product is a relentless stream of ideation and iteration. So if I was going to leave you with anything, and I have 2 minutes and 42 seconds to do it, I would say this. If you're working on a product, on a startup product, which I would guess that most of you are, the name here would seem to imply that. If you don't do any sketching, if you don't do any ideation like that, just do 10 sketches. And if you already are sketching, do 10 more than you would have done. Do more sketching. Do more ideation. It can't hurt you. It takes very little time, and I guarantee you will get good results out of it. Build one more prototype. If you were already planning on building a prototype and then fixing the bugs and pushing it, do one prototype ahead of that. The prototype for the iPod was a block of wood. Your prototype doesn't have to be something tremendously complicated. It obviously depends on what you're trying to do. But do one more prototype than you would have done. And get one more round of feedback. Critique things one more time. Don't be satisfied with just like, OK, we did a cut at it, and then I got some feedback, and now we're going to build it. Do a cut at it, get some feedback. Do it again, get some feedback, then build it. Or if you're already going to do it 3 times, do it 4 times. Just give it a little bit more, and ask 5 more customers for information on what it is they want, on what it is you should be providing to them, on what they would expect. The customer won't always be right, and I believe there's actually a talk coming up not that long from now, which is like your customer is always wrong. So don't necessarily trust what they say, but do ask them. You can learn some valuable things. Ideation and iteration. Taking a mediocre product and turning it into an awesome product, or taking no product and turning it into an awesome product, is an exercise in just relentlessly ideating and coming up with the best idea you can, and then iterating and iterating and iterating and iterating. Everybody does it. It's oftentimes disguised, or you don't necessarily know it, but every good product out there has gone through several different versions. So that is my talk. I have 52 seconds left, so thank you very much.